Meeting to order. This is the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, November 16th. It is 7:02. Mr. Aho, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Felber?
Here.
Mr. Slura?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Here.
We are all here. If you'd all please now rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I do not believe we have any other changes to the agenda, so we'll move past that. All right, bear with me. I apologize. It's going to be a long one. So, good evening and welcome to the students, staff, and families from Wilcox Primary, George G. Dodge Intermediate, and Twinsburg High School. This is the meeting of the Board of Education for November 16th, 2016. I am Rob Felber, and I'm honored to serve as your president of the Board of Education. Tonight's report, as you will come to hear, has aptly been named From the Classroom to Capitol Hill. And since I have never named one of my reports before, let me explain. Your board and administrators just today have returned from Columbus, where for the last 3 days we attended the Ohio School Board Association's annual conference. Think education with 9,000 plus of your closest friends. This annual gathering features superintendents, treasurers, business managers, along with school board members from districts with as little as 800 K-12 students to districts that number in the tens of thousands of students served. Twinsburg serves approximately 4,100 students K-12. The professional development opportunities include presentations, discussions on almost every imaginable topic, from safety and bullying to transportation, finance, and community engagement. Tonight, I want to highlight two key areas from our experience, and once again, unfortunately, sound the alarm. My two themes for tonight are finance and student growth measures. As many know, our district engages in yearly activity of goal setting, followed by countless activities, measurements, and presentations throughout the year that represent these goals. Our financial goal for 2016-17 school year is as follows. The Twinsburg City School District will be student-centered and support student learning and safety by continuing to maintain fiscal integrity, transparency, and accountability of the district's financial resources by implementation of benchmarks identified on the financial strategic planning flow chart. I know that one's a mouthful. And now to the classroom portion of my report. As this and previous boards have reported, we're still facing the permanent elimination of the tangible property tax revenue, otherwise known as TPP. Originally estimated for us to lose over $9 million in slated lost revenue, we have already lost $3 million from TPP reductions. The balance is scheduled by current law to phase out over the next several years. And despite current levy renewals, the district surplus has already started to be depleted due to this permanent revenue loss. We attended several sessions that while the lobbyists still proclaimed hope with our legislators, we know that our responsibilities, many of which you just heard me read, and that of our treasurer cannot be solely based on hope. By law, we must prepare 5-year forecasts. Let me repeat, planning for 5 full academic years. The forecast remains bleak and could even be worse if some of the plans to accelerate the elimination are accepted by lawmakers. And while our lawmakers are winding down for the year, the apparent lame duck sessions still may bring relief, or worse, an even more rapid reduction in revenues beyond the current plan. Laws can be changed and vetoed. We will remain vigilant in the fight, but we also must remain practical. So these particular classroom sessions were not so pleasant. So what happens when the classroom gets rough? Students, you know what you do. Let's go out for recess. Well, that's the Capitol Hill portion of my report. While it might sound exciting to rally on Capitol Hill, it was a fairly subdued experience, and my first. No one was arrested, and we did not chain ourselves to any fences. We did, however, brave a brisk morning to stand outside to show our support and hear how districts throughout the state are struggling to get some very specific laws changed. Many news agencies, including the Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com, reported on the event, and for those reading my report online, there is a link here to those reports. Two of the main concerns dealt with the state's new arbitrary graduation requirements and a concern that nearly 30% of the class of 2018 across the state may not graduate. Well, this was not a complaint and scream rally. It was a cry for cooperation. School officials want the State Board of Education to work with them, to listen to them, and not create laws without the input of degreed educators who are trying to implement student learning and growth. Be assured our message was heard, and relief from the system may be in the near future. Speakers at the rally also addressed high-stakes testing and over-testing, a position this administration and board has taken for a number of years. Not every district, every student learns and tests the same, and districts are fed up with the one day in the life of a student high-stakes test. The very quality of the measurement is also called into question. While we all may agree that measurement is part of learning, we must come together to find more acceptable and reasonable methods. Note, we're not talking about lowering standards, just finding additional methods behind these winner-take-all standardized tests. The 2016-17 goal for student growth reads, the Twinsburg City School District will be student-centered by developing the whole child through the implementation of focused curriculum, community partnerships, and high-quality professional development. Your board and administrators pledge to keep fighting for what's best for Ohio students, your children, our children. Well, this may have been one of my longer reports. I warned you. I am confident that you will understand, and even more now, come to understand the importance of the activities of your board representatives. And now, seeing all the bright and energetic faces of our students, many of wishing I had already moved my report outside for recess, I will now turn it over Mrs. Powers for her superintendent's report.
Good evening, Mr. Felber, Board of Education. Good evening, families. As always, it's wonderful to see everyone here this evening. A packed house as usual. This evening, we're going to be celebrating students from Wilcox Primary, George G. Dodge Intermediate, and Twinsburg High School. But before we get to the student portion of our program, I do have a couple of things I wanted to add to Mr. Felber's comments. First of all, Board of Education, as you know, and as many of our residents and our families know, last week was a phenomenal weekend, I should say, because I traveled with Mrs. Johnson and Mr. Winter and representatives from Samuel Bissell Elementary School, along with Mrs. Farthing and Mrs. McKinney, because that was the celebration where in Washington, D.C., Samuel Bissell Elementary School was named a 2016 National Blue Ribbon School. To be one of 329 schools in the nation is just so remarkable. It was a wonderful experience, and I can honestly say, Board of Education, probably a highlight to my career. But you know, it's not about us adults, it's about the students that were represented that day. And there were 9 schools from Ohio also represented in the group of the 329. So it was a awesome opportunity. I know Mrs. Johnson and the staff over at Bissell continue to walk on clouds. They're so very excited. And very soon you will see the brand new 2016 National Blue Ribbon School flag flying over Samuel Bissell Elementary School. And there's also a brand new banner and a plaque as well. So congratulations again to everybody who's affiliated with Samuel Bissell, and that includes our community members that support our school district. We can all celebrate in the success. To know that we have a National Blue Ribbon School here in our district is really a wonderful thing. Last week, Board of Education, as you know, we paused to remember Veterans Day, and I just want to thank the many, many, many students and staff members who planned such wonderful programs for our veterans. They were in our buildings Thursday and Friday of last week, and our kids just did a great job of thanking the veterans for their years of service and dedication. We all recognize that we live in a great country, and it's just because of so many wonderful people that put their hearts and efforts together to make sure that we are safe here in our homeland. So thank you to our veterans, and most especially thanks to the students and the staff members who really did a great job of thanking the veterans last week. Also on November 3rd, Board of Education, was our second annual Senior Citizens Bus Tour. It was a smash hit again. We had a busload of senior citizens that joined us for the day, went from one school to the next, had lunch with us, had a snack with us, listened to some great concerts, had classroom visits, just had a phenomenal time, and they reminisced about what school was like when they were in school, and it was just a great learning activity for our students as well. So we thank the senior citizens from our community community that visited us that day, and I heard many of them saying, sign them up for the third annual. So if you happen to be a senior citizen and watching the show, know that our third annual senior citizen bus tour will be on the calendar for next school year, and we can hardly wait to get there. Board of Education, as you and Mr. Felber just made an announcement about all that we've been doing, or all that we did the last couple of days at the OSBA Capital Conference in Columbus. That's an opportunity for our Board of Education to have professional development for themselves. It's important that they have an opportunity to learn from each other some best practices about what's going on across the state of Ohio. But one of the highlights of the last couple of days, as Mr. Felber indicated, was the superintendent's rally at the Ohio State House. And I just want to share with you what the message about the rally was all about. It wasn't a protest, and they wanted to make sure that we told our residents we weren't protesting anything, but we were rallying together as school districts across the state to make a stand about accountability in our schools for our kids. And here are some points that were shared during the rally. First and foremost, school districts across Ohio want to regain local control. For so long now, we have been mandated to have tests and standards and how we test kids. And what we're asking for from our legislators is to allow people who know kids best in public school districts to make some decisions that are best for the kids that we service. And so we're asking for the regaining of local control. Secondly, we are asking for less testing in our schools, which happens to be state-mandated assessments. And when we do have to have state-mandated assessments, we're asking that the test results be turned around in a much more timely fashion so that teachers can use those assessment results to inform instruction in the classroom. That's what it should be about. We're asking that the legislators provide safe harbor until all the tests have been implemented in the same format for all students, and to be certain that the test is calibrated for validity and reliability before the provision of safe harbor is eliminated. Superintendents know best the successes and challenges of their school districts. Therefore, it makes sense for legislators to allow us, superintendents, to be at the table during the conversations that create solutions to the current state of disarray known as Ohio's accountability system. Of great significance is this new point system being implemented as a graduation requirement for the class of 2018. To introduce a new point system of requirements for our graduating class of 2018 in the middle of play is a ridiculous solution to a problem. The new graduation requirements must be revisited, and educators must be a part of that conversation so that the right decisions are made on behalf of our students. If a point system is to be used, then it should be introduced in a gradual sense to ensure that its implementation is not punitive to students. The current law indicates that our graduating class of 2018 needs to have earned 18 points on the Ohio state assessments. And as Mr. Felber indicated, there's a great percentage of students who are in the class of 2018 across the state who are going to struggle to meet that point requirement. What we're asking our legislators to do is to take a pause right now until we can gradually implement this new system of accountability. It shouldn't be the students' fault that they are now living under a new accountability system. They did nothing to have this new requirement put upon them. And if we do want to have a new point system in Ohio, it needs to be introduced gradually, not all at one time. We're asking that the legislators implement a plan that assists educators in setting up instruction that leads to the success of all of our students. And finally, in the development of Ohio's plan, we're asking that the new plan, now known as the Every Student Succeeds Act, it's the new federal law, I should say, should be based on what the minimum requirements are in the federal law. Oftentimes, the state of Ohio's education system will want to add more to what the required plan happens to be. And what we're asking our legislators in Ohio is to go by the federal minimums at this point. Let's implement a plan at that level, and if we see that students need more rigorous requirements, then let Ohio legislators determine that with the assistance of educators across the state. To determine something unilaterally is not the best thing to do for kids, and so we're asking that much recognition goes into making sure that this plan, this new plan that will soon be recommended to the State Board of Education and then to our legislators merely be the federal requirement, and then we can move forward from that point in time. We're asking that the state legislators restore the dignity of our classroom educators. They know our kids best. They know how to take assessments. They know how to create assessments. And we are expecting that our voices be heard. And so we are very hopeful that our parents and our community members can work together with our educators here in the Twinsburg City School District, our Board of Education, to make our legislators understand loudly and clearly that enough is enough. We want to regain local control in our school district. And I'm asking our residents this evening to take a look at the names of our two representatives down in Columbus, Representative Christina Rogner and State Senator Frank LaRose. These two individuals need to hear from you moms and dads. I'm asking you to take a stand about this testing. I'm asking you to take a stand about the graduation requirements. And I will be sending more information out to our parents with some talking points for you to hopefully send a little note to one of these two individuals. It's important that all voices be heard, and we know that there was a change in the park assessment because our parents got involved in that effort. And so now I'm going to ask our parents once again and members of our staff to get behind this effort so that our legislators clearly understand that enough is enough in the Twinsburg City School District. We want our educators to take hold of what's important in their classrooms, and we want them to be the definers of what students need to be able to master in their classrooms. And so we will make sure that our parents and our residents get this information, and I do encourage everyone to take a stand on this very, very important issue. Board of Education, we do appreciate your presence yesterday at the State House. We know that you're behind us and that it's important that you have a strong and unified front for our community members. You represent them in your business here as the Board of Education, and their presence at the State House yesterday was a sign of their support of our students, and it was a sign of the support of our community. So I applaud the board for their presence yesterday morning along with me, Mr. Welker, Mrs. McKinney was there as well, and we will continue to do the work that we need to do. And again, I encourage our parents to join behind us and with us, making sure that our state legislators understand what the folks here in the Twinsburg City School District are all about and what we believe in. Speaking about what we believe in, Board of Education, in your folders this evening, you have a copy of our fall district newsletter. Just for our family's sake, that will be in as an insert in the Twinsburg Bulletin, I believe next week. It's chock full of lots of information about our school district, lots of great things that our kids have been involved in, and just information that you need to know. So look for that as an insert inside the Twinsburg Bulletin. And the reason that we do that, just for your information, we actually save money by putting it as an insert rather than mailing it to families. So always looking for ways to cut costs, and that's one of the ways that we do that. So enough of me this evening, and you know I've had this cold for 3 weeks, so I'm just traveling has not been easy, and I apologize for the raspy voice tonight. But we have lots.
You had it back till you stormed the hill, and then your voice.
I know. What can I say? But we have lots of students to really celebrate this evening, and so without further ado, I would like to ask Mr. Asti to come forward. He is representing Miss Villa this evening, and we have lots and lots of Tigers from Wilcox Primary School to celebrate. Good evening, Mr. Asti.
Good evening, Mrs. Powers, Board of Education, community. Here tonight to recognize some really great students and some teachers as well. We have a phrase at Wilcox, and it's pretty basic. It's Wilcox rocks because of me, and it's something that we look for in our students to be respectful and responsible each and every day, and we look to our teachers also to help facilitate that. So we're going to recognize some great students and great teachers today. So when I call your name, if the student could come on up, and there's a certificate up here you'll receive, and if you could line up in the front, and also if their teacher, if they're here this evening, could join them, that would be wonderful. So first up is Olivia Diedrich, first grader in Mr. Hill's class. Come on up, Olivia.
Matt, why don't you? Stand.
And so we asked the teacher, what makes them rock? And Mr. Hill says, Olivia is a pleasure to have in class. She's a great friend to her classmates, and she's always willing and ready to help her teacher and her peers, and she always exhibits great effort. And then we asked the students, why their teacher rocks, and it's always cute to hear what they say. And Olivia said that Mr. Hill is a nice and caring teacher who always makes learning fun. He is always funny because he tells class jokes which makes them laugh. He always helps her with adding and subtracting using 10 frames, and Mr. Hill makes Wilcox rock. Our next student is Bree Downer, and I don't believe Bree is here this evening. Her grandpa actually got into a car accident. So she is with him, and we're sending our thoughts their way. But I do want to read what Mrs. N said about Bree. Bree is a very kind, happy, hardworking little girl. She always comes to school with a smile on her face and ready to work. She loves to learn and is always raising her hand to participate in class. And Bree is not only an excellent student, but also a great friend. And Bree said that Mrs. Zenz is always kind and takes good care of her students. Whenever a student does not have a snack, she gives them a snack, along with a big hug. She's helped Bree make her G sound, and Mrs. Zenz reminds her it sounds like ga, like game, goose, gum. Mrs. Zenz makes Wilcox rock. Our next student is Charlie Shortridge in Mrs. Knisley's class. Come on up, Charlie and Mrs. Knisley. Mrs. Knisley says that Charlie is an awesome girl who comes to school every morning with a big smile. She is an excellent student who strives to do her best and learn something new each and every day. Charlie is kind to her classmates and is the first to cheer them on to achieve their goal. Mrs. Knisley can't imagine her class without Charlie this year, and Charlie's mom and dad should be very proud of her. And she said that Mrs. Knisley is a nice teacher who has Charlie be her classroom helper, and she helps Charlie with her hard words and having her tap them out. Mrs. Knisley has great posters in her classroom also that helps Charlie learn, and Wilcox rocks because of Mrs. Knisley. So those were some first graders. Moving on to kindergarten, we have Alana Benson in Ms. Nicola's class. Come on up, Alana. Ms. Nicola was unable to be here, but said Alana has been a model student this year. She is always on task and ready to learn. She actively participates in every class discussion. Alana is very respectful, sweet, and caring. She works very hard and does her best every day. And she said that Ms. Nicola is a nice teacher who always gives her students hugs. She is always helpful because she takes her students to the library, which is actually right across the hallway from her classroom. So that was a cute comment. And so she always helps her students also tap out the words whenever they're hard and they don't know what they sound like. Our next student is Grace Boazzo in Mrs. Stutton's class. Mrs. Stutton has nominated Grace because of her hard work and dedication to the classroom. She is always on task and following directions. Grace is a joy to have in class. Being a new student to this district, Grace has really adjusted well, so well that she has been a big help to another new student. She is the go-to kiddo of the class. And she said that Mrs. Stutton makes her feel happy and makes learning fun. She teaches her students how to do math and answer all the questions. She has helped her new students know what to do and how to do good on their tests. Mrs. Stutton is why Wilcox rocks. And our final student this evening is Seth Hamid in Mrs. Iani's class. Come on up. Mrs. Iani writes, I am honored to nominate Seth Hamid for the Wilcox Rocks Because of Me Award. Each day, Seth comes into school ready to learn. He participates in class discussions and is a friend to all. Once when the class had a substitute, Seth's name was written down on the paper as a great classroom helper. If something is difficult for Seth, he never gives up and keeps trying with a smile on his face. Every day, Seth lives up to the Wilcox Pledge as someone who is respectful, responsible, caring, and safe. Mrs. Iani is very proud of Seth and cannot wait to see him continue to grow this school year. And he said that Mrs. Iani makes learning fun. She does fun things like Go Noodle to get her students moving, has Read to Self, and tells her students that it's okay if they don't know everything. Whenever Seth had trouble with difficult words, Mrs. Iani helped him sound them out. Wilcox rocks because of Mrs. Iani. And these students and teachers do a great job, but parents, really, if it wasn't for you and your support at home, you are the key to this. You've been the ones working with them over the last 4, 5, 6 years, and it doesn't seem like a long time, but they're wonderful students, thankfully to you. So if I could have one more round of applause for the students, the parents, and all the students and Teachers, if you could hold your certificates up in front of you. Very good. And this is a great photo opportunity, so parents, snap some pictures. Excellent. Thank you so much. Next up will be Dodge Intermediate School. So if you guys could hang out and help acknowledge the students from Dodge, that'd be great.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to echo Mr. Astee's comments about our families and how important it is to acknowledge the support. One of our great events acknowledges the support of not only our mothers but our fathers. Our father-daughter dance was a tremendous success with nearly 600 fathers in attendance. And so we'd like to continue to support that process and remembering that fathers do matter. And not to say that mothers don't matter, but it's all too often that we don't get a chance to acknowledge how important our fathers are and our significant role models are in our young people's lives. So publicly we want to say thank you for that. We also want to acknowledge the support that we received through our senior tours. I had a number of seniors visit Dodge, and we literally had to drag them out because they were having so much fun and enjoying the kids and doing art projects. And one of the things that they got to see was our brand new chorus program. And so if you get an opportunity in the month of December to come out and visit Dodge and see their winter program, it will be a sight to be seen. It'll be at the high school. So again, we want to thank all of our families, whether they're current parents or future parents or parents that no longer have students in the school, but it's so important to continue to support our schools that way.
Good evening. Thank you everyone for coming this evening. Tonight I would like to recognize 4 young ladies on stage here with me. One of the primary goals we have at Dodge this year is to give students a voice, and when I met with these 4 young ladies, they are student council representatives from Mrs. Booker and Mrs. Jackson's homeroom. They were thrilled to have this opportunity to be before you. They're really excited, and I had to settle them down outside so we could hear what was happening on stage here. But with me tonight we have Caitlin Kaminsky, Hunter Hayek, Tyra Johnson, and Caitlin Gannon. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to them.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caitlin Kaminsky, and I'm a 6th grade representative at Dodge. Today I'll be honoring the 4th grade Student of the Month from Mrs. Brindley and Mrs. Victor's homeroom. The 4th grade word this quarter is respect. Respect means to follow the golden rule. The golden rule is to treat others the way you want to be treated. And it also means appreciation, honor, recognize, to be kind to, look up to, pay attention to. So now the students of the month for 4th grade are Kelsey McDonough, and Joseph Pollock. Hello, my name is Hunter Hayek. The character word for 5th grade students for this quarter is caring. Caring means that one is kind, compassionate, and protective. It means that one expresses gratitude, forgiveness for others, and helps people in need. Caring students are also charitable and selfless. We are proud to honor 5th grade students for the month for Miss Little and Mr. Willis's class, who showed caring behaviors were Darsh Patel, and Hayden Withers.
Good evening. My name is Tyra Johnson. The character word for 6th grade students for this quarter is citizenship. Being a good citizen means you do your share to make our school and community better. You cooperate, you get involved in community affairs, you stay informed, vote, you are a good neighbor, you obey laws and rules, you respect authority, you protect the environment, and you volunteer in our school community. The following 6th grade students from Mrs. Schmott and Weiner's class demonstrate excellent citizenship. Those are Nadia Ardington, and Jenna Pasick.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Gannon. I would like to provide you with an update on many of the projects and initiatives that we are working on as student council at George D. Dodge Intermediate School. Our pumpkin decorating contest was a huge success and was a lot of fun. This year's homeroom winners were as follows. In grade 4, Miss Ronaldo's homeroom took first place. For grade 5, Miss Reek's homeroom was first place. And finally, in grade 6, Miss Haas's homeroom earned first place. Another wonderful program is our Panda Club. The Panda Club's main objective is to spread the message about the dangers of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. Over 200 students volunteer to be part of Panda Club as they are interested in making Dodge a great place. We are also looking forward to our annual canned food drive from November 28th to December 9th. In prior years, we have raised over 2,000 non-perishable goods for our community hunger center and hope to exceed that this year. Thank you for your time.
And good evening, everyone. Earlier this week, Mr. Holland had an opportunity to speak to the students about what they can do to make Dodge the best school in the state of Ohio. He gave them some good points to do that. And I'm here to recognize some people that not only help our students with those goals, but push them along in a great way, and those are our staff members. We have 2 to recognize tonight, and our staff members are nominated by other staff members as our top tigers for the month. We have Mrs. Kathy Custich this evening. Mrs. Custich was nominated by Ms. Jen McHugh, one of our 4th grade teachers. And Ms. McHugh nominated Mrs. Custich because of her hard work that she does each and every day, her professionalism in working with her colleagues, and her hard work with students. The administrative team's favorite thing about Mrs. Custich is the fact that she is humble, and when we say she works hard for her students, she is truly an advocate. She goes above and beyond for them. She works hard to make sure their needs are met, and she never tries to make her job easier in doing that. So we truly, truly appreciate that from you, Kathy. Now, we have another staff member who had to go home ill today. So this is what I'm going to do. All of those staff members from Dodge who are here, you're going to stand to represent Mrs. Wall. Can you please stand for us? Okay, stay standing because you have to take all of this love back to Mrs. Wall. Mrs. Wall was nominated by 2 teachers, Mr. Schultz and Mrs. Jensen, and they nominated her because they said, you know what, Mrs. Wall comes to school each and every day, and she has a smile on her face, and she works hard for our students. Now, for those of you who may not know, Mrs. Wall works in our Magic Hearts program, and those are our students with some of the most unique needs. And her administrative team's favorite thing about her is that fact that she comes to work every day, and she loves her children. And we all know that that's half the battle whenever you're working with kids. If you love them and you want to be with them, everything else seems to come into play and work well. So we're very proud of her for that, and thank you, Dodge staff members, for being recognized in her honor tonight.
Just real quickly, I want to make sure the boys and girls get a chance to hold their certificates up nice and high so that families can get a picture. And we're going to have our student leaders come around so that they can be in the picture and they're not behind. So girls, why don't we come around to the side? Then Mrs. Custard, you can come around as well. So let's give them one last final round of applause. As we invite Mrs. Tarango and her staff from the high school to come up and join us next. Thank you, boys and girls.
Mr. Holland, I just want to say, it is so refreshing to see your students come up as the student leaders to introduce our Students of the Month. So thank you, boys and girls that were here, that were leading the introduction and the recognition of our students from Dodge. You did a great job, and we are so proud of you, so thank you for your efforts, too.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mrs. Tarango, the high school principal, and this is Mr. Sullen, and he's our assistant principal here tonight. And we're here to announce our Tiger Strong Students of the Month. And basically, these students are nominated by their teachers for doing random acts of things related to kindness, but also helping others, helping students maybe that are new, or just being good students and good citizens. Okay, so let's start with our first one, and I know Michael's mom called me. He couldn't make it tonight, but Michael Bowers, a senior at the high school, and a teacher nominated him, and I don't even think these students know who nominated them until tonight, so I'll let you know. So we'll start. I would like to nominate Michael, as he always works extremely hard in class and never complains. Without sharing this long, detailed story, there was a situation where he made a decision to do the right thing when no one would have known if he didn't. I already had a high opinion of him, and this was really impressive of what he did. Michael was nominated by Mrs. Swinning. We congratulate Michael Bauer. Alexandra Dent. Come on up, Alexandra. She is an outstanding student who exceeds expectations and is willing to help others understand. She asks questions when she has them and is always prepared and ready for the next challenge in the classroom. She is a very positive individual and is always smiling. Alexandra was nominated by Mr. Kalkbrenner. Congratulations, Alexandra. Next this evening, we have a teacher that says, I would like to nominate Ajane Newton. Ajane, there she is. Ajane is always attentive and helpful in class. She has gone out of her way to help me with cleaning up, setting up, and always helping with projects. She is kind and very considerate all the time, even when friends around her may not be. She is truly a model of an outstanding student. Ajane was nominated by Mrs. Houston. Congratulations. Next up, we have Mallory Warnock. There she is, Mallory. Mallory has been a huge help to me in interactive media. She is now working diligently as my student aide Block 2 on Blue Days. I don't usually demand my students pick up certain projects, but I do let them know when I need volunteers to pick up important ones. Mallory always steps up when others won't. I wanted students to produce a video for OSBA. She did. I needed someone to do a report to boost the upcoming Foreign Language Club canned food drive. She volunteered. I told her I wanted to have everyone in class complete at least one video contest and compete. I told her there are so many contests out there, but I needed to research on the internet. Mallory volunteered to look for me and found so many contests for her classmates to be involved in. She compiled all of the important information for each contest and printed up copies for her classmates. She helps me clean up the news every day, Block 2. If you know Mallory, you know she's always shows up with a smile and she's always friendly. She is willing to step up and help whenever. Mallory was nominated by Mr. Curtin. Congratulations. Okay, next this evening, I would like to nominate sophomore Jacob Pruitt. Let's see what his teacher says. Jacob is such a conscientious student. He really does everything 100%, both in and out of school. I know fall is such a busy time for him because he's on the soccer team, but he never lets that interfere with his schoolwork. He is kind, soft-spoken, and so friendly. I can see him really emerging as a strong leader on the varsity soccer team and in the classroom as he progresses through high school. Jacob was nominated by Mrs. McPherson. Congratulations. And last but not least, Sarav Bambra. Sarav couldn't make it tonight, but let me introduce what he did here. So I'd like to nominate Sarav Bambra. Sarav is always polite and respectful. He greets me at the start of class, always says good morning, always says have a good day upon leaving. He completes all of his work, he does well on his quizzes and tests, and he even asks those extra challenging questions and completes them. He works well independently and with a group. He is a true pleasure to have in class. Sarav was nominated by Mrs. Grumman. So we congratulate Sarav. Okay. And we always ask our students who they brought with them. So I'm going to ask Jacob if you can tell us. Congratulations.
I brought my parents and my sister and my brother.
How you doing? There they are.
I brought my parents and my sisters.
There they are. Congratulations.
My parents and my brother.
There they are. Okay. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we always say there's always a strong network behind these students to support them. And from Wilcox on, we certainly do have Tiger Strong students. So thank you, students, for doing such a nice job at our high school. Very much appreciated. Okay. Our next highlight tonight, I'd like Mr. Sullen to describe a little bit a program that we're starting at our high school that we're very excited about. We have a little PowerPoint put together, and if I can ask him to tell us about it.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board.
Good evening.
Superintendent Powers. Good evening, families. How are you this evening?
Good.
Great. At the high school, we have started a program, and it's referred to as the Tiger Scholars Program. And it has a very special purpose because it identifies some of our incoming freshmen that needs a lot of help based on where they were in the first grading quarter. And so what is the Tiger Scholars Program? It was born out of the MAC Scholars. A lot of us are familiar with the MAC Scholars Program. It was made famous from the Shaker City schools, and the MAC Scholars, it stands for Minority Achievement Committee. That was the name that the young man, the group came together, and that's what they named themselves, the MAC Scholars. But we needed to build the MAC Scholars to fit our needs here in Twinsburg. As we know, one of our subgroups, the African American subgroup, we are low when it comes to our state report card. Well, that's an area of struggle for us. At the same time, there are other students that still needed help, no matter what subgroup they were a part of. And so instead of it being called MAC Scholars, we opened it up to everyone who we identified, and that's where we came up with the name, the Tiger Scholars Program. So we identified incoming freshmen who struggled, so 8th grade, or were currently struggling in high school at the time. And the way we looked at that, we looked at D's, F's, referrals from teachers, that sort of thing. And so what we did from there is that we wanted to build a support system around the students' academic and social emotional needs. And by the end of this program, we're hoping to be able to build leaders out of these students that were struggling, because we want to make sure that they have success early and often. How does it typically look? As a group, what we came up with, myself, the counselors, and I have 20 volunteer teachers. So volunteer, they're not getting paid any extra. They volunteered when I put it out there. First thing is they will meet with their students. So each teacher has two students that they will mentor. And they meet and they do goal setting with them every month. Not long term, but for 1 month, what do you want to accomplish? What's something that you're struggling with? Whether, hey, I want to change this D, I want to get it up to a C. Small things that can happen over the span of 4 weeks. Based on the goals, we as a leadership team, and when I say leadership team, I mean the mentors, we meet and we set what we want to do for our Tiger Scholars program, because we take all of their goals and we discuss what is it that they need. And basically we use what they tell us in their goals to decide what they need. And at that point, we set up lesson plans and we do student breakout sessions. Our first student breakout session was, where am I at and where do I want to be? So by doing that, they identified a lot of these students who were struggling, a lot of these students who were really maybe cutting class or showing up late or having social emotional issues. These were the same students that were able to identify that themselves, and on the flip side still say, where do I want to be? I want to be in college. I want to be in culinary school. I want to do X, I want to do Y, and they all want it to be successful. So it's on us as the mentors and as the Twinsburg City Schools to bridge that gap from where they're at in order to where they want to be. And the teacher mentor monitors the progress. And so this is every month, this is the cycle that we go through with the students. And so that's the teacher sending an email, hey, how's Johnny doing in English? Or actually our second breakout session was communication. So our students, we made them check their grades and send an email for themselves. So having them advocate for themselves. So these are just a sample of some of our session topics that we put together coming in. But based on what their needs were, we did the second goal, which was setting goals and developing good study habits. And then I would say the fourth one, how to approach teachers. So those are the two that we've gotten done so far. And based on our students' needs, based on every single month, we may not hit everything on here, but we're going to give the students what they need as they need it. This is just a sample goal sheet that we use. So the student will state the monthly goal, and then we work backwards with the student to say, what are you going to do to achieve this goal? And the student states that, and then we go back and we revisit it and ask, was the goal achieved? And if the student says yes, great job. If they have the evidence, if it's no, having that discussion with the student, well, why not? What happened? You know, and trying to put our finger on what's stopping our students from being successful. Long term, what are we looking for? Right now, we only have freshmen in the program. That's not to say that there's not sophomores or juniors struggling, but we wanted it to be a natural progression. And by the natural progression, we want our freshmen to grow into the sophomores, that instead of us leading these breakout sessions every month, it will be our students that are in the breakout sessions now to be able to lead their peers. As well as, with it only being freshmen, it's not too much on the teachers now, because each teacher that volunteered is only 2 students. And we talked about that number. Some even volunteered to take 3 or 4. But I don't want to bog down a teacher with extra work. So they all volunteered to take 2 students. And we definitely want to train these students to become leaders. As I already said, we want them to take over and be the peer mentors for our incoming freshman class next year. And so that's our Tiger Scholars program that we have at the high school.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, we appreciate brand new to the high school and already starting a new program with the, of course, the mentorship of Mrs. Tringo. But we have so many programs of intervention for our younger students. It's so wonderful now to see a program such as the Tiger Scholars program at Twinsburg High School, and we commend you, and we look forward to hearing a report at the end of the school year as to the success of these students. Mr. Felber, that concludes our report for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers. And I know you'd all love to stay for the rest of the meeting. But apart from you guys who can't leave, the rest of you, if you got homework to do or dinner to get to, now's a good time to go. But you're more than welcome to stay. We're going to be moving to committee reports. I'm not sure. Do we have any committee reports? I think. All right. I'm not seeing any committee reports and any blue cards for remonstrance.
No blue cards.
No blue cards. We're going to just continue on with our agenda. We are at G, Treasurer's Report. And I'm going to read G1. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the following meeting minutes: work session of October 24th, 2016, and regular meeting of November 2nd, 2016, as sent to the board under separate cover. Is there a motion for that as read?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Slur. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Torwaldron. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes. And that item passes 5-0. We're now at action items personnel, and I'm going to read H1 and 2 together. H1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the certificated licensed personnel and/or contract recommendations as detailed in the attached Exhibit H1 as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. H2, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the classified personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached Exhibit H2 as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Is there a motion for those two items as read?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Curtis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Davis. Any discussion? I'm going to just mention and congratulations to Russell Schmock in over 30 years of service. He'll be retiring. Will be missed. That's a lot of institutional knowledge to be walking out the door if we can approve it. I'm not sure, but
I was
I'm
just going
sure.
to comment quickly and at you that both my kids had him. He is a very enthusiastic teacher, and he gets the kids very excited about what they do as well, so he'll be missed.
that's a great presence to have. Any further comments or discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes, and those two items pass 5-0. H3, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the supplemental contract recommendations detailed in the attached Exhibit H3 as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Is there a motion for that item H3 as read?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Curtis. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Abstain.
Mr. Felber?
Yes. And that item passes 4-0 with one abstention. Moving on to action items, new business. Without objections from my colleagues, I'm going to read I-1 through 5 together. I-1-5, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the Title I Parent Involvement Policy that was approved at the Title I meeting held on November 15th, 2016, as per the attached Exhibit I-1. I-2, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education adopts the contract with H1 translating and interpreting for interpreter services for a preschool age student. Time is not allowed to exceed 4 hours at $50 per hour with a minimum of 2 hours charge and mileage to be paid with the general funds as sent to the board under separate cover. I-3, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the following police officers and rates based on start times for the security events for the 2016-2017 school year and permit the superintendent to employ additional personnel as needed, and the list is in our agenda. I-4, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves Monica Price as an OTES, Ohio Teacher Evaluation System, credentialed evaluator for the 2016-2017 school year. And I-5, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a proposal for an overnight extended student trip for the Twinsburg High School girls basketball team to travel to Reynoldsburg High School to compete in the opening weekend showcase from November 26, 2016 through November 27, 2016. The trip will be paid in full by the Girls Basketball Booster Fund as sent to the board under separate cover. Is there a motion for those five items as read?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Slura. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Torwaldron. And let's see, any comments, discussion?
Board of Education, the Title I parent involvement policy is an annual requirement. It's actually a federal requirement. This past week while we were in Columbus, Mrs. Farthing hosted the Title I parent meeting. What has to happen annually is the parents have to take a look at the proposed policy and offer feedback, and the policy was approved by the parents and is now up to your level for your consideration, hopefully your approval this evening.
Thank you for that additional information. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl-Waldron?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes. And I-6, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the change order from CCG Automation of Richfield, Ohio for the hot water heater replacement project at Twinsburg High School at the cost not to exceed $2,469.00 as sent to the board under separate cover. This is a permanent improvement expenditure. Is there a motion for that item as read?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Torwaldron. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Slera. And then we always toss to Mr. Welker if there's any further explanation.
It's very exciting. It's just to repair the seal for the storage tank for the hot water heater replacement project.
Thank you. Had to bring you to the meeting somehow. Any further questions or discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Turl-Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes, and those items pass 5-0. We are now at miscellaneous. Is there any further comments from my colleagues?
Good few things, Mr. Felber. I just want to, it's been a busy couple weeks. I echo Mr. Felber, Superintendent's message about our trip to Columbus was very valuable experience for us all. A lot of information passed around, and as always, a good professional development. I also want to thank two schools was able to partake in the Veterans Day events before I left, so last Friday. One at Wilcox and one at Bissell. This will be my 5th time at Wilcox, and I'm looking forward to having one more year there. Bissell, as well, was Thursday. Would like to publicly thank Ms. Browning, Mr. Scalero, Mrs. Wozniak, Mr. Asti, as well as all the PTA members and the other staff and teachers at Wilcox that welcomed all the veterans there. It was a great time. You could see the look on the veterans' faces as they saw the kids, as the kids came up to them, and it was just, as always, a great event. And then Bissell was actually kind of expanding their program again this year, so thank you to Ms. Thomas, Ms. Fedina, and again, the rest of the staff and administrative team over there, as well as the PTA volunteers that put that together as well. As always, a great program and very touching. The songs the kids sing, there were some not dry eyes in a room full of hardened veterans when the kids are putting on their presentation and singing. So thank you very much for that. Also, thank you again to the PTA at Dodge, as well as the staff and administration over there. I was able to attend the 2nd annual Father-Daughter Dance. Miss Davis was there helping as well. Apparently there was a lot more video of the fathers out there dancing than I had ever imagined. So apparently I'm on a few of them. I can tell you it was a good time. The dads and the kids all had a blast, and by the end of the night I don't think there was one person sitting.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. As Mr. Holland says, that the family involvement with the kids, and that's a thing that I've seen at Dodge quite significantly over the past few years, is bringing those role models, both the fathers and the mothers, in, and making sure that they continue to stay active in those kids' lives at that age, which is a very trying time for those kids. So thank you again for all the efforts that the PTA, the staff, the administration do to keep the community involved and keep those outside of normal school activity things going, because that's important. That means a lot, and the kids get a lot out of it. The parents, we do as well as the community that is able to partake in those too. So thank you.
Echo Mr. Slur's comments. It's the first time that the Ohio School Board Association Conference did not fall on Veterans Day. So thank you for your service, Mr. Slura. And I was able to pop over to Wilcox and just greet a couple veterans and hear some very interesting stories and get out there before any crying. But we'll be looking for those videotapes, though.
Yes, I
Hope
have a
somebody
few. Lots of
busted a move at the father-daughter day. Any further miscellaneous?
No,
Jump
just
ball.
echoing both of what you said. I wasn't able to make the Wilcox program, but I was able to make the RBC program. And the choir, the marching band, the orchestra, for such a young group, they were incredible. And it was, the marching band had played some music, and each the Army, Navy, each branch had their song played and were recognized and stood in the audience when their song was played, and that was something incredible too. It was a good experience, and like I said, the whole program was very well run, and I was just glad to see so many people there and veterans there, and the dance, that was just a lot of fun. I was sneaking around and trying not to get in the way, but there'll be pictures coming, and it was very, very, very well attended, and with fathers and father figures, and I was just surprised. I shouldn't say surprised, but I was pleased how many did show up, and it'll be good to see that program continuing on. That's it.
And I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what a lot of us were saying. We did have the opportunity to go down to Columbus, and I thought it was a very valuable 3 days for all of us. I think a lot of us had the opportunities to go into some sessions that are really going to help our school district to grow. So there's breakout sessions all during the day on, like Rob said, over every topic from A to Z. And what was really nice is we were very spread out and were able to get a lot of good information in a lot of different areas. So I'm looking forward to us. I know we have a work session on Friday, just kind of brainstorming with some of the things we learned and bringing it back to our community and back to our kids. So very positive couple days. So I thank the community for allowing us to do that because it's a great, great tool that we're able to use. And then additionally, I just wanted to extend my condolences to the Lawrence family. For those of you that are in the wrestling community, Don Lawrence was a referee and a very involved community member in that sport, and he did pass away this week. So we just wanted to extend our condolences to their family. He contributed a lot back to many children in this community as well as many adults. So he will be missed, and just a great man. Thank you.
Anything further?
Yeah, I do. I have a few things, actually. First, I wanted to make sure that I publicly acknowledge and recognize Mr. Jim Betts. We had an opportunity to see him one last time preside over the annual Alliance meeting down in Columbus. And Jim Betts, if you don't know him, he's been around a long time. He's a former legislator. He's also made his rounds in the education world as well. I've had the opportunity and privilege to work with him still in other capacities at my job at the Educational Service Center of Cuyahoga County. But he's done a lot for what we're striving to do and fight for with not only our district but districts around the state. And so he's going to be missed leading at the helm, and I just wanted to make sure that I publicly acknowledge that. I really appreciate his leadership. Also, I want to thank the community, Twinsburg community, for passing the renewal levy for the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center. It passed by an overwhelming majority, which I was not in doubt that it wouldn't. that it wouldn't pass. But we sincerely appreciate the gesture and the continued support for everything that we are doing at the center and providing high quality programming for our students now and for years to come. In addition, one additional note for the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, I want to thank my colleagues for those of you who were able to attend the all boards meeting that was also held earlier in the month. A resounding success. We had a lot of folks show up, and I want to make sure that I extend those thanks on behalf of Dr. Roebuck. We really appreciate your attendance there. The last thing, piggybacking on our time down in Columbus, and more importantly, the rally of the superintendents on the steps of the state capitol. It is something that's extremely important, that we continue to build on the momentum that was started. There was a state board meeting that followed the rally, and a couple of superintendents that excuse me, that I work with, Dr. Keith Kelly, he's the superintendent of Mayfield City Schools, as well as Jim Lloyd, superintendent of Olmsted Falls. He's actually one of the ones who organized the rally. They were able to testify at the Ohio School Board's meeting. And I got a sentiment from both of those guys that things went very well, that their remarks were well received. If you read in the paper, I'm not sure whether it was the Columbus Dispatch or the Cleveland Plain Dealer, C. Todd Jones is an appointed board member of the State Board of Education, and he made a remark, and I quote, that it was a march to mediocrity. And I wanted to make sure that I commented on that personally, and that I think that this sentiment is more a reflection of an ideology than any research-based approach to solving problems in education. Folks like him are the problem in Columbus and representing the state school board. It's troubling, to say the least, that you would diminish our efforts to improve accountability on behalf of all students throughout the state. I want to make clear, based on the feedback that I got from Jim Lloyd and also Dr. Kelly, that that was not the sentiment of the majority of the board at the state level. However, comments like that make it into the paper, and in my opinion is a misrepresentation of what we were there to do, the purpose behind the rally. We're going to continue to do these things and to bring attention so that we can make things better for our students as well as all of the students around the state. So as the superintendent alluded to earlier, please reach out to our representative, Rogner, as well as our Senator LaRose. Make your voices heard. We're going to continue to push, and hopefully we'll get some amicable resolution to not only this particular piece but other aspects of accountability in education. That's it.
Any further comments? We do have need for executive session, so I will go ahead and make the motion that the Board of Education enters into executive session at 8:10 for the discussion of student discipline per Board of Education Policy 0166A. This is not on your agenda. It's been added. It's going to be K, and then adjournment will be L. We do not anticipate further business after this executive session. So that concludes. So I will go ahead and make that motion again at 8:10. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Curtis. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Solera?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Turl Waldron?
Yes.
That item passes 5-0. We are now in executive session. Thank you. Have a good evening.